I know we've already started to live stream, but we will get started just in a couple of minutes. We're a little bit early, waiting for folks to trickle in, and then we'll get started as soon as we can.
And Sherry was, by just FYI, she'll be on the call. She might be not be able to speak in the beginning. They're finishing up. The Buckley staff was here today. They did little mini tours for
Yay.
them. So she's wrapping that up. So she was going to start on her phone, just FYI.
No worries, totally understood. I also just made an announcement that we started a little bit early, but that we started live streaming a little bit early, but that we'll get started just in one bit. We're just gonna give folks time to trickle in as they can. We're gonna get started around 4:05, just giving folks time to trickle in as they are able to. So just giving both folks here and those who might be watching the live stream that we will get started in a bit, but not quite yet. Patrick, just a quick question. Is it just you today, or will Nicole join us as well?
Nicole is joining. She is finishing up another call, but she will definitely be joining.
There she is. I see her. Just wanted to make sure. No, we have many a thing going on, so I understand. Hi, Nicole. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started
I'm sorry.
about. Yeah, no worries. We'll get started about 5 minutes. I mean, sorry, about a minute or two. We're just giving folks some time to trickle in. For those of you watching and for those of you just joined us, we're just going to give some folks time, and then we'll get started promptly. We'll give about 1 more minute, and then we'll get started. Christina, are most folks already here? I don't have the list in front of me.
I know Millie's missing, Costanza if she plans to join, Carol Gale.
Okay.
John Walton I know is in the negotiation, so I'm sure he won't be here.
Okay. All right, so we'll get started, and then folks, we can catch up folks as they sort of come in, but I just wanted to make sure, especially in lieu of last time's technical difficulties, I wanted to open the space with a big apology to you all. I was having some internet and then some technical difficulties, and it just shut me out, so I apologize for last time, but a big thank you to Christina for landing the plane safely and making sure we at least were able to wrap up. And I know that there was a lot of, but before that happened, we had a lot of amazing conversation. So I want to thank you all for bringing that knowledge and that wisdom and that collective knowledge to all of us. And universe permitting, no technology happens. Everything should be ready to go today. But yes, so I wanted to kick us off today talking a little bit about where we left off and sort of where we're going to go. We talked a little bit about last time about being really clear about the narrative of what we're stepping into for the short legislative session. We went over the fact, just a big recap, we went over the fact that we are entering a short session where a lot of the bills are going to come from committee, co-chairs. That is not that we already have had past a budget year, but there are things we can still do. And then we talked about the 3 areas of focus that we thought we would focus on this year. There were definitely concerns about the acknowledging of asking for more money, and we wanted to reiterate that it is not necessarily about asking for more money, but asking for the correct and equitable funding of some of the existing structures of revenue. And then yes, asking for extra funding based on the reality of our open choice program when it came to transportation. So what we did in the meantime is take sort of all of your feedbacks and all of your concerns and sort of put it in a way that it's a little bit more clear and concise and accurate to the best of our knowledge so that we have a better foot stepping forward. We'll review what those 3 look like today. And then the next, really, with the bread and butter of today is going to be knowing that the legislative session will be starting in February. If Nicole, I know you put a timeline on the bottom that we already sort of started to go over, but if we can reiterate, so after we're done with the first half, which is going through the lists, making sure everybody feels comfortable with that, we'll go through the timeline of what the legislative session looks like, which we started a little bit. And most importantly for today, where are we going to be most needed, right? We have amazing lobbyists who are going to be lobbying. This is their full-time job. They're going to be doing this on our behalf, but there are places where both us as the committee and our communities, our parents, our larger organizations that we are in partnership with could step in and provide support, whether it be that testimony, whether that be attending events or attending days of advocacy. So we want to make sure that we figure out what are the best methods of communication, and from Nicole and Patrick, what are the places where you think we would be the busiest or most helpful, right, in that process, whether, because I know there was some areas for testimony time. So I wanted to give you all a chance based on your expertise to let us know what sections you think we're going to be most helpful in. And then from there, we can determine what those tactics will be, right? In terms of engagement for our families. Does that sound right to everyone, but in particular, our lobbyists, Nicole and Patrick, based on what we talked? Okay.
Great.
Beautiful. Let me see if I can, Nicole, I don't know if you have it in front of you. Might you be able to share the top of that, the screen with the paper, with the document that we're working off
Yeah.
of?
Yep, I have the ability, so let me just do that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Sorry, guys, just Trying to, hold on. I can just share my screen.
If not, I can also share it. I think I have it right in front of me.
Oh, I think I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
So we cleaned up a little bit of the language, and so I wanted to sort of micro focus on the three areas. I'm going to start actually from the bottom up. We have the ECS formula inflation adjustment. So what we know to be true is that the current foundation for the ECS formula has not been adjusted since 2013. The cost of operating and administering K-12 education has increased due to inflation, which we all know is true, while the base for that ECS funding formula of $11,000 has remained a bit stagnant from the state, effectively underfunding public education, right? So if we talk about inflation versus the fact that we have the same amount of those core dollars, that ultimately we just don't have enough to conduct business as we should. So that's one area, and we're not the only city or area in the state who is going to be advocating on behalf of this as well. I know there's some other cities who are also going to be in conversation about this at the legislature because it's also impacting them. The other thing we talked about was the special education, fully fund both the new seed grant and special education excess cost grant, and ensuring that that funding is allocated directly to the Board of Education, and follow the rates of setting process for that program. So making sure the dollars come directly to the Board of Education, doesn't have to go through the city. It goes straight to us. And then finally, one of the biggest, we know is one of the areas that we need the most support on, particularly because of our role as an open choice system, is the busing. So secure additional funding for door-to-door special education transportation costs for students. So what we do know is that in HB 5001, the legislature directed the SDE to engage in a review of billing standards for special education transportation, including setting a rate schedule that all districts must follow. So that's already been sort of put in place. The goal for us would be to build on that statute and really request that the state provide full funding for special education, door-to-door transportation for all open choice students. And I didn't know if you wanted to add anything in that I just shared, Nicole, but those are the big three buckets that we sort of heard collectively from administration, from parents, from folks here that we might want to tackle and might be effective at it. Also knowing that we might not get everything we want this year, but that does not mean it is not worth asking and setting up a plan for that ask.
Thanks, Krista. And I will add, so the rate setting that will go in place for the 2027-2028 school year, just in case folks were wondering. But otherwise, you hit it all. So thank you.
Krista, may I just ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
When we say for all open choice students, are we talking about open choice, the program, or should that say school choice?
Oh, yes. Then maybe that is the correct terminology. Yes.
Okay.
We'll make that change. Thank you. This is why. And any places where you see we need to be clear, just let us know. This is just a template that we're going to be working off of. And all of your collective knowledge really does help sharpen this a lot more. And again, Patrick and Nicole will be the one leading a lot of this work, but we're here to serve in the best way that we can to support that work. Any other thoughts? I can't see everyone. Let me actually change my view so I can see. If you're raising your hand, I cannot see you. Let me change my orientation here. All right, I don't see any other hands. And then the other things that we talked a little bit about last time were maintaining the funding that we already have, right? Making sure that stays the same, and other issues that are not necessarily that we're going to be leading on, but that we're going to keep an eye on because it's important for the whole health of our students. Is like figuring out, if there's cuts to the federal school lunch and breakfast programs, if and how that impacts us, health services, for SNAP and Medicaid cuts, right? Behavioral health cuts that may be coming down the pipeline. And of course, maintaining an eye on family and student safety as we see the increased federal presence of ICE, right? In places like Connecticut and across the nation. So those are some of the other things that we'll keep an eye on, but don't necessarily will be sort of like the main focus that we do. Since I don't see questions about this section, I wonder if, Nicole, you can take us through, and we've already talked a little bit about timeline, but if you can take us through the timeline and then let us know, based on this, that when will be the most helpful for us to be engaged, and then we can talk tactics and what we think might be helpful as a collective to lean into, and what's realistic with our capacity.
Of course, yeah. And so, as you mentioned earlier, Krister, the session is shorter this year. It starts February 4th, and that means the timeline is a bit more condensed because we end on May 6th. So things, while there's I would say less stuff addressed just because of the condensed timeline, everything will come really, really fast. So February 8th or 9th, so really probably the week after session starts, we'll probably start to see public hearings being scheduled, including budget revision meetings. They usually start around Valentine's Day. And that's where the Appropriations Committee is going to be discussing, the budget, talking to agencies, getting their input, and there will be an opportunity for public comment in the Appropriations Committee on that. So that's always an important part because all of the policy is perpetuated by the Education and Select Committee, but Appropriations has to fund it. So that's a good place to have a presence. By the end of February, the committee bill proposals will be due and bills will have to be formally raised by committee. So that means pretty much the core of the topics that will be introduced, although there is stuff that will come in the form of amendments, will be, discussed by and introduced by the committee by the end of February. So at the same time, you'll probably see more public hearings populate on the calendar. I would bet you Education Committee will start their hearings around the 16th as well. And so again, that is going to be the best time for engagement as well. And that's in the form of obviously public hearing testimony. I know we talked a little bit last time about, having some sort of information document available to members that, succinctly kind of shares our short-term and long-term goals and provides some useful talking points for folks to use when crafting their testimony. It really depends on what the goal of the Select Committee on Special Education is, but I think we should expect to see at least one hearing there. If not, last year they had a forum, which the superintendent attended, as well as the public hearing. So we'll keep our eyes open for anything like that, but a forum is also a good opportunity. While it might not be on specific legislation, that can be a good opportunity to provide input, perhaps, if it's the Select Committee discussing additional options for state substituting transportation funds. And then around the middle of March and the end of March, that's when public hearings will start, and it will start being deadlines for bills. So that means bills have to get out of their originating committee into the floor. I would say the month of early April, the money committees will be finalizing their numbers. They always go last because they're still crafting the budget as policies are being approved by the committees. I would say by the end of April, any budget revisions usually are adopted. I will say in 2024, there were no budget revisions, so I can't guarantee it, but usually by then we know. And then the session ends by May 6th. So it's a condensed timeline, and then an additional time where we're going to need additional engagement is probably that last week of April and that first week of May. So that we're engaging legislators, especially as the budget is being amended or changed, making sure that whatever policies we're in favor of, as well as any, cuts or unfunded mandates, stay out of the budget. Patrick, do you want to add anything?
Nicole, I think you've covered that, and we can get into when Krista wants to about when we think people may be able to weigh in and participate.
Awesome. Krista, are you still there? You want us to go ahead with that?
Yeah, if we can just, so next steps, what we'll do is, and what would be helpful, like I know we have it here, if we can highlight on our end those times that will be the most help, that we would need to be the most engaged, that would be helpful. And then if we, the next steps, yes, if we can move into the next steps and think about the best methods for providing. So first and foremost is, when is this happening? What can we do? And then like, what is really, actually, what is the best way to communicate those things out to us here? And then what are some tactics we want to do collectively in terms of engaging ourselves and then some other folks in our network to advocate with us. So if you
Sure.
can go ahead.
So Nicole and I can take this take this piece as well. So we are going to have a meeting with the delegation in January, and towards the later part of January, and we can talk about that as you know, after the year, as to who would be, you know, who we would have come to the meeting. I would hopefully the superintendent would be available, and then the representative group, you know, from the board. But we can talk about that. But I want to let you know, that is one of the first steps we're going to want to take. The speaker will host the meeting in his conference room. All the delegation will be invited, and you all, representatives, anyway, will share along with us the goals for Harvard Public Schools in the legislative session this year. Get the reaction. Obviously, there'll be significant discussion about funding. So that'll be one of the first steps, and that'll be, this whole group obviously wouldn't be involved in that, but we will figure out what that is from there. And then, as Nicole said, we'll roll into the public hearings pretty quickly in this session because it is short. And in the past, we've had, you know, whether it be submitted testimony from the superintendent or in person. Obviously, the former superintendent did both at times, and then individuals from the board had submitted written testimony or provided you know, remote testimony or in person. So depending on where these bills land, what comes out, what the committees decide to do in terms of raising bills, that will dictate, you know, the level of participation. Nicole, you want to talk about heading into committee votes and budget adjustments and things like that?
Yeah, so as you know, after public hearings have been held, there will be votes in the committee to refer bills of interest out of the committee. So while that won't be necessarily a time for public testimony, there's still opportunities for engagement, especially if there are bills that are particularly important to us. And that might be kind of one-off levels of engagement, like saying, you know, whichever Hartford delegation member is on the education committee, can someone on the board, you know, give them a ping, hey, we're really interested in this piece of legislation, you know, want to make sure that it's going to be passed out of committee, and we can help you, and we would provide, you know, heads up about that.
You know, during this period, Nicole and I would, of course, be messaging, you know, off the sheet we talked about today, to not only members of your delegation, but leadership in both the House and Senate, and on the committees that we'll be looking for some support from. And that's just an ongoing exercise, right? And as we what I didn't mention, I mean, during the public hearing portion, what there is opportunity, as there has been for Hartford, to have students participate. And again, that is on a case-by-case basis. It depends on the issue, depends on the interest of the, you know, whatever school it might be, whatever class it might be, to generating some support from students and parents. And I know that we'll get into a little bit of that when we talk about tactics, Krister. But we want to make sure that if they can participate, the broader community in Hartford obviously is a strong voice, and when we can have them, we do appreciate that.
Of course. And then as for best methods for providing communication, that I think is a little bit up to you guys. I think Patrick and I are happy to provide legislative updates about public hearings, letting people know when it's time to engage. In the past, sometimes it's gone through Christina or through Pedro. So I think that's a little bit up to you guys. But I'm happy to do it if we think that that's probably the fastest way to get stuff out.
I think what we learned, we can have, one point of contact for communication, then be distributed from there is probably the best way.
Do we know from here who that point of contact would be between Christina and Pedro? If y'all want to weigh in on what makes sense.
Whatever, Madam Chair, whatever we decide, Christina needs to be on all of it.
Thank you for that clarification. So should we say it goes through Christina, Madam Chair? I defer to you on this one.
And I'm willing, just
She's in
FYI.
touch with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be in the mix no matter which way the preference is.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
I'm
definitely the main point of contact for the board, because not every board member is a part of this committee.
Yeah.
But they need to be up to date on what this committee is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And Christina, you were going to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm willing if you want, or we can decide after if you'd like, and then.
Okay, perfect. So we can get you a definitive answer, but we do know that Christina has to be a part of everything, and that we also do know that part of that communication will not just be for this task force, but for the rest of the board, so that they're also in communication and know what's going on, and that'll all go through Christina.
Great.
In terms of tactics that would be helpful, I mean, I will say that I think in terms of board, it makes sense for us to just do written testimony, just in terms of timeline and people's ability, aside from whether the superintendent or the chair decide that they want to do spoken testimony. That's up to, I think, them. But I think it makes sense to have written testimony. But really, the bulk of engagement would be trying to get as many of our young people and our families to that we have that we're in connection with to be able to engage in this as well. I think that would be my my focus, and to do that, I think it would make sense to have a testimony template that folks can utilize and support, that we can share out.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can prepare. That's, and we've talked about this, Krister, depending on when we get a heads up, it can be, 5 days, but because each bill is a little bit different, we will have to change each template a little bit to meet that bill. So we'll always have at least 5 days notice, but I know that's hard. As if we can get a heads up, we do, but just want folks to be, aware of that dynamic, because that's unfortunately the way the legislature operates.
And it is particularly hard if we get notice, it comes out Friday morning, but we may get it Thursday night, and there's a holiday on a Monday, and all of a sudden the testimony is due on Tuesday, and everyone's like, why didn't we? So it is sometimes logistically kind of hard. We will work with that. 5 days seems like a long time, but by the time people get to focus on it and draft some testimony, it does go by quickly. But I agree, Krister, it is important, and we obviously encourage it.
Any thoughts from other folks so far on what we've discussed? Questions, areas of clarity that need to happen before we keep going?
I have one question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Just wondering, like, as we do, or participate in the hearings and all of that, I remember last year we took students down as well. Will there be that opportunity, or do we create that opportunity and prepare students for the same thing?
So, we certainly welcome that. In the committees, particularly, I think appreciate that. And it's there isn't a more genuine voice, right, than the students, and obviously teachers as well. But in terms of really hearing from the people impacted, I know that we worked very closely with Pedro and Christina on coordinating a lot of that, and obviously the earned media stuff that Pedro did as well. So I don't know if if he wants to speak to that, but we certainly, if it's possible, we think it's important.
I see Jennifer, and then if Pedro can respond or add if he wants to weigh in, but I see Jennifer.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I do think that written testimony is the best way to go with this. Oftentimes there's additional questions that you may not have answers to. So just providing that written testimony allows you to share your thoughts and ideas without having to be responsive to additional questions you may not have responses to.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you for lifting that. I think that's really important. Certainly a learning. And Dr. Ratley, I think it makes sense to have students prepared to participate, even if the opportunity may not present itself. I know that we'll try to make the opportunity present itself. I think that's important to have that, but either way, having students ready to participate will be helpful. And Pedro, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to some of the tactics y'all used last session, that we all utilized last session, in terms of getting the students ready, some of that earned media.
Yeah, sure. Again, we need to develop talking points with our lobbyists, and now that Caitlin also has a lot more information and accurate points, we can share those and take them to a student level. I think we also will try again with Millie Arciniegas to get a lot of parent engagement, including continuing our Raise Your Hand campaign. So we can probably tailor some of the talking points to, if people ask raise your hand for what, I think we now have a nice agenda of topics that are really honed down to very specifics. So we'll definitely, and we will try, it's difficult. The hardest part, I think, on the students' part is not only the notification is so quick, and Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 5 days includes the weekends and holidays. So it's hard to organize students, get parental authorization, and even transportation, right? So maybe there's something we can try again to do some video, or maybe Pat, I don't know, and Nicole, if we can Zoom them in to a hearing, maybe that's an alternative we can use.
Yes, Pedro, I think that we didn't do that last time, and I know how hard that you all worked in getting students, and it's a big undertaking. But doing it remote is something we should think about, the most efficient way to do that. And Christina, thanks for putting that in the chat. I should have mentioned the Student Advisory Council that has been helpful. It would be great to leverage that group as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking about as well, the Student Advisory Council, and of course engaging the SGCs, not just being Beyond Parent University, and make sure the SGCs also know that it's happening. And I also wanted to so I wanted to add those two things, and I'll pass it over to Chairwoman Brody.
Now, I was asking, I wanted to ask where, like, how many, like, as far as this committee exists, like, do we have different representatives from different parent groups? I know, I thought Christina did say the
Costanza.
Costanza was supposed to be here, so she's one of our folks, but I don't know if there's an opportunity. Well, with her group of parents and with if we're engaging SGC parents, I think we might be good.
So what I'm hearing is, two things. What I'm hearing is Pedro, CFO, Caitlin Richards, and the lobbies will get together and develop some talking points that are going to be important for us for that preparation work. And then in the meantime, what we can do is set up a list. We'll use the same sheet of all of we know Constanza, we know some other parents groups. We'll add all of the parent groups that we know we're in relationship with that might be important to reach out to. And then we can figure out how do we reach out to them when the time we gets closer, but at least we have a list of those folks so we're not missing anyone that's important, and sounding like we have already a good list with those 3 folks already involved. Those 2 folks plus the SGC parents being involved. But we can put a larger list together. Board member, Director Ledger.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. So just to not so much piggyback, but looking for clarity is
Yeah.
specifically, is Hartford Parent University part of this? Not part of this, but do they have a voice as well or no?
Yes, I mean,
What she had.
go ahead.
No, I think that's what she had said when she listed the parents group, the engagement. No, it was Pedro that mentioned that, and that's why it was like Constanza is. She represents a big group of parents, and then we have our own SGC parents, and we could even get in touch with once we firm up our list for PTO parents. I think we have the parents and they're organized in the schools. We just need to tap into that.
Yeah.
So I remember that last year, both Millie and Constanza were part of this task force. Are they not no longer?
They are.
They are. They're just not here
Okay,
today.
great.
Yeah. Millie was at the last one. Board member Director Ledger, did that answer your question? Do you have something?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I want us though that we have to start engaging our parents.
Mm-hmm.
They're our parents.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do a better job. I think the superintendent is forming his council of parents, but we have SGC parents that are serving, and we have PTO parents that are serving.
Mm-hmm.
So we can maybe contact and get in touch with our family support person, people that are at the schools, and they could help us with those parents. We have them. We just have to organize them. We did a good job last year, but I think we could do a better job organizing our parents with our staff. That's what I'm saying.
Definitely hear that. So it sounds like, yes, the list of external organizations, but making sure that we have a robust internal list of PTO parents, SGC parents, and then parents who might have a relationship with our welcoming centers, and those and our staff there to make sure that they are already organized. We know this, right? And so making sure we're tapping them to board Chairwoman Brody's point in this. So having, yes, a list of all the organizations and the parents they represent, but also that we have a good number. We have our parents who are definitely engaged and have been engaged, and just making sure we're creating a list that includes them and that we're tapping into them and knowing who to contact to tap into them. And I can certainly help work on that. So, any other thoughts? Questions? We are a quiet bunch today. Okay, I hope that's a good thing.
I'm gonna go get my charger because everyone's very concerned. So I'm gonna get my charger. Sorry for the anxiety, guys. I'll be right back.
Like, oh boy.
I just noticed it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do one last round of checking in to see if there's any questions or any thoughts. Let me ask this: does it feel okay? Does this feel like it's taking shape? Does it feel good? Like, does it feel like there's clarity? You can just put your thumbs up. All right, I see thumbs up. I see thumbs up. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That is much helpful. All right, so we're about halfway through, and if we don't have to take the full hour unnecessarily, we will not do that. But we want to make sure we get through everything. All right, we've talked communications, best methods. We've already figured out how to do that bit. Christina, I don't know if you're around to be able to look. I can also look if anything. Can you just give me a heads up on when the next meeting that we're having is? Because I know we're going into the holiday season.
Yeah, I said I know that's going to be the last. January 14th, Wednesday, January 14th at 4 o'clock as well. And then the next Wednesday, January 21st, also at 4 o'clock.
So by January 14th or before that, we should have the list of talking points. We should have the list of families and engagement opportunity in terms of like the groups that we want to be in partnership with. We will have highlighted the dates that we're going to be needed most. The expectations from the board is that we will submit written testimony, not in-person testimony, which should make it easier for many reasons. And then that we will be engaging. And then in that meeting, what we'll do is think about, or we'll be doing it already, but we'll discuss how we're engaging our parents and our families in our organizations. And hopefully by then we'll have also a template we can work off, templates we can work off. I see Board Member Fortune. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I apologize for croaking like a frog here. Lost my voice. I think you've answered that before I raised my hand. So hopefully we'll have really good materials for the written testimonies to help us as board members to be able to get them out timely and get them out for several bills. I think last time you were really good, Krista, with yourself getting that to me at least. But I think we should have someone from the schools team helping to support us to make those testimonies and then helping us with making at least providing a template that we can just revise. But that, I think you've just said that, so hopefully we'll have that in place. Thank you.
And out of curiosity, thank you, Board Member Fortune. I think that's an important highlight. Out of curiosity from the district side, who has traditionally been, I know the lobbyist has done some of this. Is it Pedro, is it you who also supports in creating those templates? Like who is the who that usually
Yes,
does
I
them?
would, with the support of my team, meaning that we would be in charge of that.
Okay, perfect. And I'm happy to help share them out once they're ready, and happy to like support and like, like if you need thought partners in that, or if you just need someone to help sort of usher them in as things get really busy, I'm happy to be part of that system of getting them out there to folks.
Great.
Any other thoughts, general comments, or questions before we close out? Anything that we did not discuss that you think it's really important that we discuss next time? That goes for all of us. Let me see, there's nothing.
Krista, I think you've set a good agenda for the next meeting, having just taken notes on the things you want to have ready for that. So I think you've got a good sense of that. So from our perspective, anyway.
Perfect. Board Member Tatum?
Thank you. One thing that I think would be beneficial, and I think this will come some in other meetings as well, but as we get more information about like the funding situation and like the complexities of how Hartford Public Schools is currently funded and the expenses that we have, I think just some like time, whether it's in a public meeting or kind of an agreement to workshop this in smaller groups or something, but just like practice with wrapping our head around like how do we talk about this, how do we explain it, because we'll receive a lot of information and there's not always opportunity at a committee meeting or a board meeting to internalize it and like be able to turn around and talk about it and explain it. I think like going along with the template and the like structures for written testimony on the bills specifically, I think that's really great. And there's a lot about the system that won't be needed in these specific bills, but just for our own benefit in conversations with folks that might go into more depth than is possible this legislative session. Just having a space to practice, I think, would benefit all of us.
That's helpful to know. And we can think through what that can look like, whether, I don't know if we'll have time before, but we can think about it. I could talk to Christina about what that could look like, or even like right after, so that we're preparing for the next. Because I think the other thing we have to contend with is that this is not going to be the last session. There'll be a session after the fact, and so we're all building the skill set and the really like the structure to continue to do this. And I really appreciate that idea of being able to like, just for us, but in general, having those moments where we can really understand those complex funding structures in a way that we can absorb it and be able to talk about it a little bit better. That will work in addition to those talking points that will be coming out, and making sure that those talking points are clear and not super. There's some generality to them, but that they're also very specific to some of the things that some of the points we're trying to get across. Because I know often the conversation is about the way that Hartford gets enough money for the school, but we are looking at a structure of funding institutionally overall, where a lot of it is based on on real estate sales, right? On like your real estate taxes, which is already inherently inequitable as a structure overall. And then on top of that, we have the added layers of the fact that of how we do those the ECS formulas across the state, and then of course the the chef V case that in the confinements that we have as a city because of it, and the challenges and also the financial responsibilities that we have as part of it, which I know we've been taking steps to understand very deeply, both as a board, and making sure that our community also understands, who have been living with it for many, many years. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Okay, well, we've run an efficient meeting. I don't see any more questions or final thoughts. I will. So what we'll do next time is we'll meet on that January 14th date. We will have all of the materials that we talked about. Pedro, lobbyist, and CFO Ken and Richard will meet to come up with that list of talking points. They'll start developing some of those templates. In that process, really thinking through how to engage the students, particularly the advisory council for the superintendent, and then of course getting the group of parents in our own networks and in added organizations included on that list, so that we have an outreach list that we can reach out to, and making sure that we have the templates necessary to make it easier for them. Because ultimately, when it comes down to advocacy, the easier we can make it for the folks who are on the other end, who have the parents, the students who have 3 jobs, the students who have to take care of their siblings and are in school and also working, the easier we can make it for them, the easier path it is for their voices to be heard at the legislature. So if we can account for that, the easier it will be for us to be more successful in engaging them. Cool. Well, sounds about it. That sounds like we're done. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful evening. I hope you have a wonderful holidays if you celebrate with your families. And since I won't see you for the new year, have a happy, happy new year to all the folks if I don't see you before then. And I hope you get to share with your loved ones.